One. Hello. Hello, all. Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to talk to you. My name is Alex Cornell, and I am a launch success coach here at Treehouse. I recently celebrated my 6-year anniversary, so have been very lucky and privileged to work with such a great organization this long. I really want to encourage you all to ask us questions. Jeff and Connor are very, very interesting people, and I'm sure they would be excited to answer any questions you have. Speaking of, today I have Jeff and Connor joining me. I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves, but before we officially start our conversation, we want to take a moment of silence to honor George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Ahmaud Arbery, Manuel Ellis, Rayshard Brooks, Nina Pop, Dominique Remy Fells, Rhea Milton, and too many other Black and African lives and Black trans lives that have been stolen at the hands of police brutality and racist violence. Treehouse stands in community with those that have been impacted by this targeted violence. We believe in long-term sustained action to rebuild systems that are failing our Black and brown youth and community members. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now I'd like to give Jeff and Connor a chance to introduce themselves. Jeff?
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Boyer, and I'm Treehouse Ambassador Board Executive Chair, and I also work with LGBT youth. Connor?
Hi, I'm Connor, and what should I say? I am a trans foster youth, and I have been in foster care for several years now, and I've worked with Treehouse for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Connor, you're forgetting the most important part, that you and I currently work together.
Yes, me and Alex currently work together, which is great. Alex is very helpful, and I've always loved everybody that I've worked with from Treehouse.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? Are you working? Are you saving money? Couple of little things.
I am not currently working. I was laid off earlier in March, but I am currently trying to save any money that I get. I don't really have an income right now. So while I have this time away from work, I've been working on transitioning. I've started taking testosterone, and that's a lot to deal with. And so I'm kind of working on that, as well as working on like more creative stuff like art and writing and stuff like that.
Awesome. It sounds like you have some major things going on right now in your life. Great. So I want to remind the audience to ask questions. Like I said, Jeff and Connor are both very interesting people. So Connor, I wanted to ask you, when did you come out and how was that experience for you? Specifically in regards to how that was for you to come out as a trans individual within the foster care system.
So I was put into foster care in my freshman year of high school. And that is the same time that I came out. So when I was put into foster care, I also came out just before I went in. In freshman year, I came out as bisexual, and then I kind of explored with my sexuality, but I didn't come out as transgender until my junior year. And coming out as trans when I came out as trans after a year or two in foster care, and I felt like I drew a lot of attention to myself, and I didn't know what to do, so I kind of kept it to myself until I felt more comfortable with it. So when I came out as trans, I had a lot of people ask me about it, because when you're in foster care and you're living in shelters and stuff, everybody wants to ask you questions. And so I came out as trans, and then it kind of put me into a little separate box away from everyone, because in the foster care system, everything is very gendered. And so there are girls and there are boys, and then there is me. So it was a very small box that I sat in off into the corner when I was in foster care.
Connor, did you ever feel like you had anyone that looked like you, that you could relate to, that what was that experience like?
So when I was in high school, I had one other person that I knew that was a trans man, and he's the one that helped me realize that I was trans. Other than that specific person, throughout foster care, I'd never met any other trans youth. I'd met a lot of LGBTQ youth. I've met a lot of people who were not straight, but I'd never met anybody who was anything other than cisgender growing up through the foster care system.
What do you think that would have been like if you had been able to see people in spaces that you could relate to? Do you think that that would have changed anything for you about your journey in foster care?
Yeah, when I was in foster care, I felt it was kind of confusing. I was really unsure of who I was, if I was doing it right, if it was just a teen thing, because I'd never met any other adults that were who identified the same way as me. And so I think having someone who identified the same or similar to me would have been really validating in my experiences growing up, because I had a lot of questions and I had no one to ask, and I didn't know if it was going to just be a phase like everyone wanted to tell me that it was. So I thought that I think that if there had been an adult that I'd known that had been who I identified as trans or non-binary, would have been really validating.
Have you found that community yet?
I have found a very good community. If anybody's ever heard of Skate Like a Girl, they're a great community for skateboarders who are women or trans or on the LGBT or who are LGBTQ. They are a very open community, and I worked with them for a while, and that was one of the first places where I'd ever seen adult people who were also trans like I was, and it was an amazing experience. And it's always such a fun and like connecting kind of place to be if you ever wanted to meet other people who might share similar experiences with you, if you're ever looking for people who are older and might have more experience than you.
Neat. So I work at GSBA, which is Washington State's LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, and we actually have a trans networking event that happens, I believe, quarterly. I would love to get you tuned into that. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of really great adults in our community, and I think we need to be connecting those with youth who are struggling.
Yeah, so that reminds me of just really talking about the point that representation matters so much. We talk about it a lot in the context of race, and know how impactful seeing people that identify with us is. And I know Connor is aware, and Jeff as well, that there's a just disproportionate amount of representation of LGBTQ youth in foster care. And Connor, I know that that's one thing you spoke of earlier. And I know that when we started working together, I identified as a gay woman. And I know that there is a connection that you and I have that is a bit different than other connections I have with young people I work with. There's something to be said about someone kind of knowing that pain or knowing that thing that you carry within you. And so what do you think would be helpful for people working with young trans youth or LGBTQ youth within Treehouse, but in general, what do you think would be helpful for them to know or be aware of, or what would be helpful in supporting young adults like yourself?
I think having more staff who are LGBTQ obviously would be a great way to help support LGBTQ foster youth, as well as pairing up LGBTQ staff workers with LGBTQ foster youth. I remember when I found out that how you identified, I felt like we had an instant connection. It was a very amazing thing, and I bragged about it to my friends. I was like, I have a new Treehouse worker, and they're the same as me, and it's great. And so I think having that connection would be a great thing to start with. I also think that if you're a foster kid and you are LGBTQ and you're not out, or you are out and you need someone to talk to, I think a lot of people go online. And I think if Treehouse had a spot on their website, maybe for a place to look for those answers, like a frequently asked questions, or a place where you could connect kids to LGBTQ adults, to have that kind of connection, I think that would be a really great idea.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. Excuse me. We actually have a question, Connor, and I'm not sure the answer, but I think between the two of us, because I know you've experienced this, we have a question from Gabriel, and the question is, what protections, is that your cat? Cat always wants to be on Facebook Live. I'm telling you, the animal is always trying to pop up on there.
He wants to be a star.
So Gabriel wants to know, what protections are there for trans youth in foster care? If, for example, a trans man entered care, would he be placed in a home that takes care of boys? And I know that you can speak firsthand to this. And so I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what your experience was in regards to that specifically.
Yeah, so I am a trans man, and I currently live in a foster house that was for girls. And so, sorry. So when I was put into foster care, and no matter how you identify, everything is based on your what your sex was at birth. So even after I came out as trans male, I would always be put on the side of the rooms with the girls, or I would be put into homes for girls. And so that is always a hard thing for trans people, especially trans people who have gender dysphoria, because it's a constant reminder that you have to be placed in a home that isn't for boys, because you yourself physically are not a boy. And it's a really difficult thing to deal with. I know that it can be really confusing for sorry. Sorry. But I know it can be a really confusing thing, because a lot of foster parents, when they're so used to having kids of one gender come in, that they use those pronouns for everyone, and then they'll forget, and then they'll keep misgendering you, and it's all accidental. But it's just a constant reminder for those people. And I think it would be a lot easier if we had homes that were specifically for trans youth, even if you still wanted to keep people separate, because I know that keeping genders separate is for safety sometimes. I think if you had a trans male homes, trans girl homes, different houses, I think that would be great. I know it would be difficult, but I think it would be better for the youth in the long run. But for me as a trans man, I've always been in the same places as all the girls. So it would be a whole bunch of cisgender girls, and then there'd be me. Sometimes at some shelters, they'll try to make that space for you. I know when I was at places like Spruce Street, they had one corner of the room that they would put me in. That's right between the girls and the boys' room, to try and make me feel more comfortable. But other than that, then it's mostly no matter what you identify as, whatever you're born with at sex is where they'll be placing you.
Right. So they tried to make you more comfortable, but unfortunately by doing that, they had to almost other you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alex, I'm curious, from your perspective working in this field, what kind of resources do parents have related to LGBTQ youth?
Right, that's a really great question. My immediate response would be they don't have enough resources. I think that this is a really great opportunity for Treehouse as an organization to partner with other organizations that do have a lot of resources regarding LGBTQ youth. I know that the Lambert House, when I moved to Seattle when I was 19 and I came out, that was a really great resource for me. I know you're smiling. It's been in Seattle forever. I think that sometimes the greatest resource caregivers have is talking to the education specialist or launch success coach that works directly with their youth. Some caregivers are obviously uncomfortable with doing that. And so I think that hopefully, I know that you and Connor had some great ideas about how Treehouse can be more mindful around perhaps a page or a frequently asked question section where we can help caregivers. They can be directed to resources that would help them have conversations with their young adults. So I think that they don't have enough, to be honest. And I think that that's a real area that we could have for growth. Also, it looks like Lauren has a question. Oh, it's a great question. Connor, let's say it's for you. Lauren was thinking about registered caregivers through the state, right? And she was wondering, what are things that you would want them to know or do to help trans youth feel comfortable?
So some of the easiest things to do are to respect pronouns, to ask pronouns. Another thing is to even if you are a cisgender person, to when you introduce yourself to youth in general, to say your name and to also introduce your own pronouns. That's a very opening thing that can like affect a lot of trans youth. I know that I met a social worker once who introduced their name and their pronouns, even though they were cis, and I know that that made me feel more comfortable as myself to be able to introduce my own name and pronouns. So I think just caregivers and anybody when you're introducing yourself to new youth, to be very open and to say your name and your pronouns. Also, a lot with trans youth in foster care, or trans youth in general, like to experiment. They like to change their name to try and find a name that fits them, or might even change how they identify. And I think being very open and flexible with that is super important.
Yeah.
I knew another trans youth that was in my foster house once, and they went through several names before they decided on one. And it's very important to be open to using new names and to be able to be flexible with that, because I know that can be very validating to know that someone will change on a dime to whatever you feel like is who you are as a person.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. So Jeff, I know you have been a part of Treehouse for a while. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, where that passion comes from, and then also maybe talk a little bit more about what you do on TAB, the Treehouse Ambassador Board?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a teacher family. Actually, both of my parents have teaching degrees. And so, and I started school thinking that I was going to be a teacher as well. So kind of always wanting to help with youth in some capacity. I was smiling so hard when you were talking about Lambert House, because I actually volunteered there for about a year and a half. And it's a great resource for anyone out there looking potentially for resources for your queer or trans youth that are in your care. It's a great place to let your youth try out those names and identities and different things in a safe group of their peers instead of just that. So on the Treehouse Ambassador Board, this is my second year, and I'm the one of the 2 executive chairs this year. And it's been quite an interesting year in the middle of COVID. Our sort of signature event is usually in August, and that's been moved away. So it's been a different year, but we all have a new fundraising focus, which is something exciting for me. The person who runs it on the staff side, Shaughnessy, and I did a fundraising sort of lesson at our last meeting. I'm the fundraiser for GSBA's Scholarship Fund, which is for LGBTQ and allied students across the state of Washington, which is part of why I wanted to join this group as well. I would love to see every single queer and trans Treehouse youth apply for our scholarship. We need to see more representation on all of those things. And I think about our scholarship, it's a leadership-based scholarship, but all of the different things that foster youth work through and push through to be able to make it to school, I think is an incredible amount of leadership. And so that's really what keeps me passionate about being involved at Treehouse.
Well, that's awesome. I'll make sure all the ed specialists know about the scholarship. I think that's super important. Connor, it looks like we have a comment and a question for you. You are definitely the man of the hour. So we have a comment question from Megan. She says, Connor, you are brave and I'm proud of you for living your truth.
Thank you.
It kind of made me tear up too, and I don't ever cry. And then the second part was a question. She asks, what's the best way to become an ally for trans youth in care?
So I think the best way to be an ally for trans youth in foster care is to, again, introducing yourself and your pronouns to make that more comfortable for the person beside you. I know a lot of trans people can be a little nervous to say their pronouns in fear of what someone might say about them. So to say, introducing your name and your pronouns. I think another thing is to research about trans youth, about gender dysphoria, about the things that they can go through. I know when I was in foster care, I always wanted my foster parent to research more about what it was like to be a trans youth in general, especially in foster care. Because it's always kind of invalidating when that person that's supposed to look after you, that you want to trust, doesn't know anything about your experiences or what it might be like for you. And so I think doing your own research can show how much you care about the person that you're trying to care for. And a good ally, being open, name changes, maybe even looking into ways to help that foster youth transition if that's something that they want to do, looking up places they could do it, helping with insurance. I know when I started transitioning, I had a lot of questions about how insurance would work to get my testosterone, and I didn't really have anyone to ask. I went to Planned Parenthood though, and they had someone that could talk to me about how that would all work, what it covered, because insurance and stuff can be very confusing. So I think that's always great. And Pride Month, maybe celebrating alongside the person that you're with. As an ally, I know some cis straight people who don't celebrate Pride because they don't think it's they can't. But celebrating Pride with someone that you know who's LGBTQ as an ally can help make that person feel more open to being able to celebrate themselves. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've just got about a few more minutes left here, but I wanted to make sure that, Jeff, can you tell us once again if people are interested in becoming part of or becoming tab members, how they would do that? And then maybe we can put the email on the Facebook live chat so we can see that.
Yes, thank you so much. We are in active recruitment mode right now for the Ambassador Board. We changed our name this year to the Ambassador Board. We used to be the Young Professionals Board, and we really wanted to broaden that a little bit in terms of both what people look at as a quote unquote professional and the taking out the young title. So if you are interested in being a part of our Ambassador Board, we fundraise, we plan an event, we do a lot of education and learning. We do an equity activity at every board meeting as well. So it's a really rich group. There's a book club that's reading How to Be an Anti-Racist right now, which is really great. So yeah, so that if you are interested in joining or know somebody that might be, email engage@treehouseforkids.org. And we can, one of us on the executive team will connect with you, and that's an easy way to start getting more involved.
Awesome. So before we go, Connor, I know I speak for everyone. I just wanted to say how proud I am of you, how strong you are, how brave you are. It's a crazy world we live in general. And I have so much admiration for, I know what it was to come out just as gay, and I have so much admiration for you. And, I know much more about your journey and the twists and turns. And it's just, it takes a strong person to be able to be steadfast in who they are and what they want. And I'm just really, really proud of you. Treehouse is proud of you. And, we want to support you in everything you want to do and everything you want to become. So I really appreciate you being on here today and sharing your story.
Thank you.
So Jeff, Connor, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to thank everyone that tuned in to watch us. These Facebook Lives are always really, really great. If you want to get involved with Treehouse, I encourage you to sign up for our e-news and follow us on social media. Social media is always popping. Catherine is in charge of that, and the stories are always amazing. Also, we're ramping up for our back to school season. And yes, although it might not be fully in person, our young adults still need supplies and other things. So donation drive, if you want to host a donation drive, that would be amazing. Help start the school year off right for our youth in care, especially if they're learning from home. Sometimes that's the greatest support that we're going to need to give them, is to be able to really help them be able to focus and stay on point at home. So once again, on behalf of me and all of Treehouse, I thank you both for your time, and, you know, go be who you are. Thank you.
Yeah.